installment of ASA FILM on DWELLING under the title Architecture for Humanity. My name is Jakub Gardoliński. I am an architect working here in Bangkok, and I will moderate today's discussion about the social responsibilities of architects. Now, the idea behind ASA Film Seminar is to introduce thought-provoking films on architecturally relevant subjects and use them as the basis for the subsequent discussion. So today's film, Citizen Architect, it's a 2010 documentary by Sam Wainwright Douglas about the work and impact of Samuel Mockbee, American architect and educator, who in 1993 co-founded Rural Studio on Auburn University in Alabama, where he challenged his students to leave the university walls behind, go out into the real world, and try to actually make a change with their designs by building houses for those who needed them most. And since this humanitarian and very responsible in social context approaches our subject today, we had invited guests whose work and experiences here in Thailand are very similar to Samuel Mockbee or Sambo efforts in America. So our first guest, Dr. and Associate Professor Supi Chatuvivic, who is sitting behind. She's the head. She's the head of the design department on Silapakorn University, as well as chairperson of ASA Community Act Network. And additionally, in her PhD thesis, which she wrote on University College London, she has examined the social responsibilities of community architects. And joining her will be Jan Glasmeier, sitting next to her. An American architect, German architect, who after working for numerous companies around the world, such as Foster Plus Partners in London, eventually moved to Mesot on Thai-Burmese border, where in 2012 he co-founded Agora Architects, an architectural practice whose self-stated mission is architectural response to developing communities and underprivileged groups. So after the film, we are going together to analyze Citizen Architect and discuss in general what is the role of architects in the society and how can they improve, and if they can improve the world with their work. So please enjoy the film, and I hope you will stay for the subsequent discussion afterwards. Thank you.
Listen, everybody over there is going to be what? An architect. Mm-hmm. And architects design buildings for who? Well, wealthy people. They're not going to design anything for anybody like us. In those kids, they know it. So they say, what the hell do I need to know them for? They poor.
Dealing with the most destitute of clients, fall below any safety net that any other agency that I know of deals with. These are the invisible. I'll take you to houses that you won't spend the night in, and you're damn sure not going to let a child spend the night in. I'm always saying this, and I always get emotional about this, but I'm sincere about it.
architecture is very influential. We spend most all of our time in architecture. Architecture can make you sick if the building materials are toxic. Architecture can make your relationship go south. I could build a building that can make people get divorced. I mean, you can make life hard on people, or you can make people's lives incredibly better with architecture. Architecture is a powerful tool. Architects are given this great gift to make people's lives better, and not just the rich people that hire us to do stuff, but everybody.
Students, they are going to contribute something wonderful back to the profession and back to making this a better place, a better world, which is what we should all be about. And that's the reason you go to college, is not to make more money, but to gain the knowledge to make this a better world. And I believe that Rural Studio fosters that sort of idealism. And once you go to the Rural Studio and you get a chance to experience not only designing it on paper, but getting it built and have the pleasure of people coming in and really admiring what you've done and are appreciative of what you've done, that's a great feeling. And you can't replace it. And once you've had that, you're a snake bit after that. I mean, the passion is going to be there, and it may stay latent for a while. It may be 20 years before we hear from these students, but it'll come back.
We're dealing with the fact that 1 in 3 people in the next 30 years will be living in a slum settlement, a refugee camp, or an area of displacement. The reality check is that the world is not going to look like Dubai. It's going to look like Lagos, Nigeria, right? And when we're spending most of our education teaching most of the architects to design some god-awful building in the middle of the desert, when they should actually be designing, adequate and affordable housing for 90% of the planet, there's a big disconnect.
I think the Rural Studio is a landmark, not just any landmark. It's basically the pioneering landmark for institutionalizing a value system that happens to be manifest through architecture.
I saw an opportunity that existed, and I was going, we need to take advantage of this opportunity. I mean, it's right there. Here we got students who are designing, but they're not building, and yet they can. And why not? I mean, you're not going to send a doctor into practice without having to deal with patients. So why are you going to send an architect in to build buildings when they haven't built a building? The students are literally in a community itself, and they're responsible to that community. What they're building, they're directly responsible to them. The way the studio is taught today at all the major universities, those are all theoretical projects. They're not realistically based. And the Rural Studio is real in itself. It's not a representation of reality, it is reality. It's very real.
A lot of people want to know what this music means. I used to beat on a sweet bucket, and I could mark any kind of music I heard with my tongue. If I heard it, if it's a I said I had it, and I used to go down with my little turntable and spin records, and then growed on. I kept on getting me a stereo, and I had every kind of stereo, but the one that had me made.
being an instructor at the Royal Studio is better than being a student at the Royal Studio. I probably won't ever find a client like Music Man again. He was living in some pretty in conditions that most of these kids haven't ever seen, probably conditions that I hadn't ever seen.
I noticed when some of them come in here, they say, God almighty, how in the hell you live? And I want to tell them so bad, hell, I was doing the best I could.
But at the same time, he was the happiest, most spirited, sweet guy that we probably had ever met.
You know, I educated myself from comic book. And I used to close my eyes like that and memorize something like 4-letter, what I'm trying to spell, a 5, a 6, a 10. And then I turn around and make sure that I spell it. And you know, I educated, I learned more since I quit school now when I was going. Really, I ain't never started, ain't never went. Come on down here.
This is exactly what I want to do. Somebody told me I was full of piss and vinegar. Well, fine. If that's the case, then use me now while I'm still full of piss and vinegar and before I run out of gas or whatever. But, you know, I'm roaring. I do this 24 hours a day, and I wake up excited about it, and I usually go to bed just totally worn out. And I love it.
I'll be glad when I get this here house like I want. Then all they can sit in there, and I'm going to show y'all, man, I'm going to slang out with my music.
I don't believe that architecture is about making a better world. I believe it is part of a culture which makes life, individual life, more a broadening experience, because that's all we have. We live and we die. I've never seen any architecture that helps to make a better world. And matter of fact, I think architecture creates problems rather than solves problems. And I think that's really good. To me, architecture is something that challenges people, challenges what they want, challenges their idea of what comfort is, challenges their perspective on how they could live. So creating problems, I think, for me, makes a better world because it opens up the world. I'm not an idealist. So Sambo was an idealist, and we might have been both rebels or renegades, but on different ends of the spectrum. And I think that's good. The spectrum needs to exist. If everybody were like me, I'd hate it. If everybody like Sam Mockbee, it would be a disaster. I mean, doesn't 90% of building need to just be dumb building? You know, should we have a lot of Peter Eisenman buildings? I don't think so. Because, you know, they are cultural pieces that stand out from the context. And I think there are only moments when architecture is necessary.
Architecture is a social art, and of all the arts, it is probably it is not only the mother of the arts. We house all the arts, the paintings, the music, the drama, but it is a social art, and it is our social responsibility to make sure that as an architect, that we're delivering architecture that meets not only functional and creature comforts, but also spiritual comfort.
Trying to make ends meet, being an architect in a small state with what he wanted to do. He was not trying to have a traditional practice. He was not going to let the creativity be out of that. It was not how much money can I make, how soon, ever.
Being unconventional as a Southern architect only made us poor. We never had any financial success at what we did. But at the same time, it really didn't matter. That was not what was important to us. The architects in the South were not what we considered to be our peers. It was on a larger basis than that, and where we were trying to go with our work. We wanted to do work that was nationally recognized or had that quality, not so much to shoot for that, but just to do a significant work that contributed to the body of architecture, something that didn't happen much in the South at that time. We were Southerners. We were proud of being Southerners and wanted to think about an architecture that would be part of the South, part of the region.
The way Sambo arrived at Auburn
was we actually lost, I was head of the school then, and we actually lost 2 faculty positions. And we were sort of in a desperate situation. So, of course, I had known Sambo for a number of years. We had sort of ran circles in the same circles in Mississippi and all this stuff. So I called Sambo and I said, Sambo, why don't you come to Auburn and teach for a year?
It wasn't so much in the beginning, I'm going to go start the rural studio. So, you know, he had to leave the office to go teach because we were financially busted in the office.
And he said, oh, no, DK, I can't do that. Said, we were doing this job in Mississippi State right now. It's a little competition. I know we got the job. We're going down to interview for it tomorrow. We got it.
Sambo had said, you know, Coker, if we don't get this project, I'm going to go do something. I can't do this anymore. It's too much of a strain on my family. We're stressed out.
And of course, they didn't get the job, and I don't know who got it, but anyway, they didn't get the job. So Sambo calls me the next day, and DK, is the job still open? I said, no, Sambo, I told you, you know, I had to make a move. I had to get somebody here. Well, at the end of the day, what I did, I was holding the job for Sambo.
He couldn't finish saying that fast enough for me to say, go. Because he was so creative. That was who he was, and that's where his strengths were and what his visions were about, not about running a business. And so it was a relief, really, that something different was going to happen for him.
What is this right here?
That's my diary.
You write everything down?
I write everything down. Don't nothing slip up on the music, man.
Sleep, mix up.
All mixed up.
Oh, that's what you saw in your sleep.
Yeah, yes, sir.
You saw something mixed up?
All mixed up. I couldn't get it unscrambled. I was too happy about them doors. That's one thing.
Oh.
You get too happy, you can't sleep.
But a lot.
Y'all talking
so
about
you
the
write down your dreams?
Them my dreams.
You write down when people give you stuff?
Everything. I'm the man.
You write down when you shave?
I write down when I shave.
What is this right here? FUCP.
That's fill up cell phone.
Fill up cell phone. Oh, with battery power.
Man,
I need to fill up my cell phone.
Even though you're ostensibly are there to build something and you're focused on accomplishing a task and a project, you know, it's almost like that's just an excuse to get you out there, and this other exchange is happening by osmosis or in a direct way that is, I'd say, as important as what you were learning about architecture and design and building, and was definitely I'd say it was probably beyond the maybe even more so the key intention for Sambo.
The Rural Studio has done absolutely nothing for this town since it's been here. Nothing.
Well, we're doing a fire department.
Nothing.
Okay.
You're supposed to do a fire department.
We are doing a fire department next year. It's gonna go right there.
I don't see it. It's not here yet.
Well, we all.
You've been here for how many years?
Huh?
What have you done? What has the Rural Studio done for this town, for this community? Huh? Absolutely nothing.
Well, I hope that we've begun to break down some things by the fact that we know each other.
Yes.
Now, I agree.
Yeah. Well, you will. Okay.
Well,
that's about the only thing that's come out of it, that we made a friend. We made friends with you.
What about the backstop over at the baseball club?
Yeah, well, you did that. Okay, of course, hey, some people could say that, hey, you had ulterior motives because you played baseball on the team. You know what I mean?
I was just trying to get on the team.
All right. See what I'm saying? So, hey.
That's fair. This year I'm building a house for Music Man. I build one house a year. If I was going to build a house for somebody in this town, how would I pick how do I decide who
Build it for me. I can pick for you.
I want to do a house here, but we got to be fair. There's a lot of people out there that need houses, including you.
But you know what?
Including Richard.
Listen, I was on Listen, I wasn't kidding either. If you build that house, hey, I'd naturally accept it. You know.
But you also what if there's an old lady out here that's
I'd rather you do that. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather you do that. You know?
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
but you know what, man? That's an architectural program, Jay.
Sure.
You know, personally, I don't see how it has any merit. You know, as far as we're concerned. Mm-hmm. You know, except the fact that we met you and a few other good people. You know.
Well, I'm a 6th generation or 5th generation
I think I'm fifth generation. Fifth generation. My children are sixth generation Mississippian. But I was born in Meridian and grew up there in the segregated South of the 1950s and the 1960s. And I had an education that's probably second to none today, probably at the expense of my black brethren who went to schools with less money. So at their expense, I got a pretty good education.
We were aware of racist behavior. I don't think that we took strong stands against this, but we certainly didn't participate in the overt racism, but we were not part of the solution until after getting away from Meridian and trying to take action. But at the time, we were living with it. And it was all around us. But it was certainly brought to a head when, after we graduated from high school the following year, June 21st, 1964, when Cheney, Swerner, and Goodman were murdered. He took a special interest in James Cheney because, of course, of the three civil rights workers who were murdered, James Cheney was a native of Meridian. Certainly he identified with James Cheney in the sense of both being local, and Sambo had this profound appreciation for the local, and of course, but he well understood, of course, the huge difference, the segregated local, but that, of course, appears in Sambo's work. Is it an instance of white guilt? Well, in a sense, certainly. But Sambo really tried to do something that would be of lasting use.
It was good to encounter someone without a lot of preconception and then just see the way they live and not sort of judge them by their looks or by where they live, but just say, okay, this is the person we're dealing with, and react to the situation. We didn't know how to build things, and we didn't know how to interact with him very well. But just spending time out there and his sort of openness and just jovial disposition the majority of the time. I mean, I've seen him be mad and I've seen him get frustrated and, and all those things, but his personality was engaging to the point where you wanted to be out there and you wanted to sort of give him something that he would enjoy, even though we didn't really know what that meant.
So we'll probably have a wall like this on this side and maybe one like that on the back side.
Okay.
And we're also talking about building maybe something out here so you can maybe park your scooter here.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is if this opens up, you can drive your scooter up in here.
That's right.
And close that door.
Okay.
And you can lock it all down.
I ain't got to worry about nobody getting my scooter.
What's really fun to see is these students who go out and how hard they work to earn the respect of these clients.
That's a good design. Yeah. God Almighty, you sure put that together.
There are a lot of reasons why you still have poverty in America. Most of these disadvantaged families don't have a clue as to how to get out of this cycle of poverty that they're in. And it's easy for us to have an abstract opinion about it, how they should do it. They'll just have to take care of themselves. They should pick themselves up. They've got the same opportunities that I have. You hear that sort of rationale quite a bit. And what you need is for everyone to step over that threshold of this sort of our world. We think that they should come into our world. Well, what we should do is go into their world and understand it, which is what happens to these students that go to the Royal Studio. I mean, they go out there with preconceived ideas, only to discover that they're going to learn something from these families.
In architecture school, you learn that architecture is in New York, or it's in London, or it's in Los Angeles, or otherwise it's on sites overlooking the sea or by mountains. And you learn that if you're going to be successful, you open your practice in one of those big cities and, look for those opportunities. And suddenly, as a 23-year-old, the most amazing opportunity I'd ever had was in this little town of 3,000 in rural Alabama, where certainly no one had ever taught me that I could find an opportunity. So in terms of my thinking about where opportunities lie and what success means, that was really important for me.
You know what happens right here, don't you? Right there's a sink.
Well, watch it all in my hands.
Your hands.
Okay.
And then right in here is where the hot water heater will be. And your electric box that's right there right now will get moved over and be in here. So
I know it.
If you ever blow a fuse listening to your radio too loud,
Lord.
you come in here and flip it.
That's it.
When I was in school, if you could draw, I could make an A anytime. I mean, I knew the formula. I could do it. I could knock it out. I could give you the Auburn solution. Matter of fact, I could wait 2 days before the project and pretty much knock the thing out. What I think is more important is that the education of the architect has to be greater than that.
I've heard a lot since I've been in architecture that we're changing people's lives and we're affecting people collectively and individually. And I think the opportunity to do this in my second year would allow me to see if that was really true. And it absolutely is.
Okay. You'll come right up here, and your wood-burning stove will be right there.
Well, keep it warm.
And your bed is going to be right there. You're going to be laying right across the...
Looking out the window. Come on here, Brother Jerry. Okay, that'll be cool.
And so you find students who will probably see students in a design studio have all this ability to make a project happen. They've got the ability. And to me, that's even more important than being able to aesthetically deliver some creative design. They probably won't get built.
That's my man. That's the music man. Yeah, come on. Yeah, this is one of the music men here. Yeah. He the one that charged me up. My battery running me down. He brought me back. The music man.
It's so rewarding. It's like Christmas morning when you're a kid, about right before you open your presents. Those experiences sort of fade away and don't become as rewarding as you get older. But architecture, for me, at this moment in my life, it reawakens a lot of those childhood experiences. They only last a few seconds, but they stick in your mind forever.
How can you beat a project like the Fremont Troll? The Fremont Troll was the ultimate community fantasy. The whole town of Seattle was rooting for that thing. To build a public project that makes that many people happy, I mean, that might be enough for your whole life. It's not the most sophisticated project we've done, either technically, conceptually, or architectonically, but it's definitely a winner. I met Sambo in 1995, and I had not met him ever before, but I'd heard of him, and he'd heard of me before he started the Rural Studio. You know, we talked about Jersey Devil and that model that had been the design-build model and how it had influenced the Rural Studio. I'm one of the founding partners of Jersey Devil, a group of architects, artists, and inventors committed to the interdependence of design and construction. We keep a small office, basically just a post office box and phone machine, but we're pretty itinerant, working out of wherever our commissions have taken us, and we've lived on job sites all over the country and almost all over the world. Really, architecture it's best if it's in the service of the public rather than building houses for private clients. And in order to do this, we had to change our whole practice around, and Jersey Devil has become more focused on public art. And then all of us have gone into education, and we all do design-build education. We teach the next generation of architects how to build, and we can focus on projects that wouldn't happen if we didn't do them. And these projects that we do are in neighborhoods that kind of sorely need a little energy. This country does not reward architects that do socially responsible work. The people that you're interviewing who do it we're all in academia. Every day I get up and thank the University of Washington for the opportunity to give me the kind of practice that I want to do, but I understand totally that it would not make sense in the commercial world. And, you know, we need to make that happen. I would think if architecture needs to be respected, it needs to do more than just go over to China or Dubai or one of the next places where people are spending money and build more big-ass buildings. And, you know, the idea of a global architect is a bad idea, I think. The idea of a local architect is a great idea.
I had done, in the early 80s, I had worked with this Catholic nun as a freebie to build some charity houses right out here. north of Canton. And we built this house for like $7,000 using recyclable materials and for a family of, 7 people. And we did it out of the office. Everybody in my office would go out on weekends and we'd build this little house for Foots Johnson and his family. And then back in '87, we won the Progressive Architecture Design Award for 3 charity houses that we designed for this nun. And we had hoped that we were going to get a grant from the Gannett Foundation to build these 3 charity houses in '87. And we applied to them, and we didn't get it. We didn't get the grant. And we had to take those plans and put them back in the drawer, and they sat there. And while those became idle for a couple of years, I kept hoping that one day we would get some houses built. And in a sense, the Rural Studio is a result of not getting that grant.
I dream about erosion and stuff like that now. I've been freaking out about that kind of stuff. I think that's just part of the deal. But I imagine dirt sliding off this hill and the house sliding down it. But then I wake up and it's okay. And I go and I check everything with the level and it was the same as it was the day before. So everything's all right.
Anybody who goes out to the Rural Studio, student-wise or faculty-wise, it's a full-time job. It's a 24/7 deal.
What Sambo did at the Rural Studio, not everybody could have done it. You had to be willing to leave home. Sambo planned exactly where the Rural Studio was going to be, so he would be close to us. So he was just 3 hours away. He always left on a Monday, so we had a full weekend.
Thomas Jefferson, when he set up the University of Virginia, was so that the faculty members would live with their families and the students would watch those faculty members and how they conducted themselves. So the Rural Studio reinstates that. We eat our meals together, we work together, we study together, and they party together. So it's a lot of fun.
He could hang with these students all week long and into the night. Just because 5 o'clock came along, things didn't shut down. They met into the night, they were on site. It didn't stop. And he thrived on that. When he came home on Friday night, he had all of that enthusiasm for us. Was he physically tired? Yeah, he really was. But, it didn't interfere with our family life. It was exciting. We were excited. We were thrilled to death, that we were part of this.
The Greeks were real quick to realize that you had to have fun in delivering education as well. And so the social aspect that has been cut off, particularly in the 90s, by political correctness or whatever, has really hurt how professors and students intermingle. When you're living and working together, studying together out at the Rural Studio, you become a family. And I think those students pick up on that.
A primary criticism that I see of these full immersion programs is that professionals or other academics or just general people, maybe even be a student's parents, just think, okay, you can go out and do this for a semester, but then when you get done, you're going to come back and you're going to join the real world, and you're going to go out and get a real job, and you're going to, make X amount of money, and then we're all going to be proud of you. And it's a really unfortunate position to take. If students are recognizing that there's a great value, if they are desiring to learn this way and to be exposed to environments and worlds and worldviews in this way, then maybe we should think that there's actually something really important and valuable about that.
How long was that board? 16, I'm pretty sure.
What, this one?
Nah, the top plate. So we're just gonna put it up as it is.
Hey, wait before we put it up. We gotta move this plywood.
Well, just knock it off.
Well, there's people under there.
Well, heads up.
This place is set up in a way that, these projects, getting Music Man, they're handing it to us, and now do something with it is kind of the feeling. So it's a real optimistic place, and that they really trust us to figure it out.
Y'all, this looks awesome. That ceiling looks awesome. This ceiling looks awesome. When do those rafters get connected?
Which ones?
These, they're not connected at all.
No, they're not.
Does that happen soon?
I think in most situations, we all have a baseline intelligence that we can figure it out, you know. If we want to figure it out, we'll research, we'll call people, we'll talk to our resources, we'll get something going.
This side, the rafters are perfect.
Uh-huh.
We don't know why this side, the rafters aren't coming down.
Huh. Well, y'all can figure out some way to do it.
There's something lived about the rural studio stuff, where people aren't a subset of the work of the rural studio. I mean, they complement each other, they complete each other. And I think that's something that the students learn. They learn that maybe other arts are more pure, but architecture is a messy art. And I think that's what makes architecture really engaging and really wonderful. It's collaborative, it's participatory.
I would love to do low-income housing. I did a low-income housing project in Brooklyn that was built and very successful. Do I need to engage with the people who live in these units? No, I don't believe so, because I believe that the architect is supposed to know more about what they want if they could know what they wanted. You go to a person living in, let's say, Levittown after the war, go in the 50s and 60s, and then you do a survey and you say, do you like it here? And they all say, yeah, we love it here. Why do they love it? Because if they didn't love it, they'd feel badly about being there. So they have to answer, yes, we love it, right? So what people say about what they like and dislike are very problematic to use those things as guidelines.
I think so many of us experience what I would call a modernist hangover. And in the modern worldview, we convinced ourselves that we could know what professionals could know what was best for others, that we could know this in advance and from a distance of any actual engagement with others. And we also believed in a form of perfection, that there was one right way to do something and that we were the people who had the ability to figure out what that one right way to do it was. We were not willing to see that once we got on site, that once we started the process of actual building, that our designs could actually evolve for the better, that the actual situation and the context could inform our previously drawn designs in a way that would make them more appropriate, more relevant, and actually more beautiful and more perfect.
We didn't really have a whole lot of ideas about what we wanted at the time because we were just thinking maybe do a little remodeling or something of that nature. So, you know, with the students being, you know, architect students that they are, you know, they came up with their own idea and they decided that they wanted to put a wrecking ball to our old church. You know, it was maybe 94 years old, the old church. But that worked out real good, you know, and they kind of fixed it a way to where they could use and refurbish the old wood on the new building. And as you can see, the glass area, you know, they was kind of renovating the dead with the living. You know, that was their whole idea.
Until Cedric came across Rural Studios, we were about to disband. I have a great appreciation for architecture. In elementary school and junior high school, I had some forms of art, and I've always appreciated structures, and this structure here is one of a kind. And the labor of love that it took, it stands up against, I would say, the Eiffel Tower or anything that Michelangelo may have done. And I know that's putting it a little up there, but in this area, it looks like something Michelangelo worked on. So you don't know what a joy it really, truly has been to have this beautiful structure here to worship in.
because of the geography of place is what makes the work of the artist so powerful. I've always felt like that I would always find plenty of opportunity right here. There was more than enough for a lifetime of work. So if you really pay attention to what's around you, if you really look and see and feel, it's not hard to say that, you know, there's a lot to be done right here in our own backyard. If we are going to be an American family, we have to understand that in every family, and in my family, individual families, you're going to have some of us who are going to be successful. And you're going to have a brother and a sister who is, you know, doing fine. But you're going to have some members of your family who aren't doing so well, who are going to struggle financially or socially or, you know, going to have medical problems or whatever. You're going to have some members of your family that you're going to have to take care of, that you're going to have to help along the way. But, you know, I get some criticism that I'm taking advantage of poor folks. They can criticize all of them. Come on down. You can come on down and see. And if you, I guarantee you, nobody leaves there without a smile on their face. If they come up with something that's unusual like this, and materials like on your daddy's house, and like here, that's unusual. You know, different, unconventional.
Yeah.
Nobody else in the world is going to have it.
Yeah.
How would you feel about it?
I'll be excited because one thing about it, from seeing what they could do with unusual stuff that you never seen anybody build something with, I tell you, they do wonders.
Sambo was a great architect, and a lot of his particular style shows up in a lot of those structures. I don't think he pushed it in there, but, you know, by being around them, students assimilated a lot of it. But I think what really catches everyone, there's a lot of things that catch everyone's imagination about the Rural Studio, but that stuff is like folk architecture. I mean, it's about the South. It's about rustic and funky materials. It's about kind of slightly rough craftsmanship, fairly rough craftsmanship that, you know, craftsmanship isn't an issue there. What's an issue is the atmosphere and the education. I think what he was mostly interested when he started the Rural Studio and material is like, wow, we could make something out of bales. We could do this. Tires with mud in them. I mean, the tire chapel, $8,000. Tires and mud. That's one of the top 10 buildings of all time. I mean, that is just so incredible what those guys did for a tiny amount of money. They were building for pennies, and in order to do that, those materials had to be explored, and when you explore them, you exploit the potentials of them.
The way I see the architecture of those earlier years, you can see students' minds in that architecture because it's not perfect. I mean, joints don't go together. Someone said that the Rural Studio was a lot more professional now. I don't believe that. I believe the Rural Studio was much more professional when Sambo had those original intentions, because what Sambo did was make the profession invest in a set of ethics that go beyond ethics that were on paper. And to me, that's the height of professionalism. Whether a joint is perfect or not, whether the miter is perfect or not, that's not professionalism to me. The Rural Studio is an idea, and it is an idea that is a sort of a line that keeps going across the horizon. In a lot of ways, it is the horizon. We'll go up and down from that, you know. And it's about a student coming into a place that you can't fail. And the umbrella's on top of you. And you can move here or you can move there. And just let them go do it, right? So I think that is the common thread that moves through here. So I think whoever comes in here, I think the Rural Studio will always do good things. Always.
We're 15 years old now. It's different since Sambo died. We have had the opportunity to take these sort of community juggernauts on. That hasn't been deliberate on my part. I mean, I've been intrigued by it, but they've just arrived. And so in the spirit of the rural studio, we're going to try it. Why not? For me, Sambo was opportunistic. In some respects, I hope that's about the greatest lesson that our students can take, that the next great opportunity comes in the door, you take it. And I really preach that to the students, that it doesn't matter whether it's a toilet or a pavilion or a park. Do it and give it your best shot and really run at it hard. The energy that our students and the commitment that they put into it is phenomenal. I want diversity for our students and for the rural studio, and to not miss out on the opportunistic stuff, because then I think if you start to be, if you start kind of looking over your shoulder too much and start being conservative and start being institutionalized, then we've died. I'd rather go out with a bang. And I think it asks greater questions of the students. I think we serve more people. I think it's a fantastic education. Why not? And it's not like I've done it my way. I think I've just really kind of just kept it going. And it's fantastic. In a day and age where everybody expects to be paid, everybody expects a certificate, they're just doing it because it's the right thing to do. They've made a commitment to a place and to a project. Great stuff.
The project is approximately 98% finished. That's not true. 91% maybe. Hey everybody! Thank you all for coming out here today. Just wanted to introduce y'all to Music Man. He is the reason that we have had so much fun out here, and we've had more fun with Music Man than anything, and we love him to death. If we could have a round of applause for Music Man, though, that'd be really cool. You want to say anything?
Sometimes you get so happy the best for you just shut off. Cause your mouth, blah, 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 blah. But I just thank God and see the Holy Spirit for each one, every one of y'all. I sure appreciate this. Thank you. I applaud myself. We had a good time.
And before he gets upset with me, I think I got to turn the music back on. Thank you.
Okay, let me turn it back on.
Sambo started something there that will live on a pretty long time, and I think the big effect has been more at other places than even right there.
When I went to architecture school, they weren't teaching people about how to make better communities. They weren't teaching people about how to make dignified structures for as many people as possible. You know, and I would tell my professors, you know, there's this amazing guy, he's got this incredible program, and they're like, the south of of the U.S., are you kidding me? That's not architecture. That was so dismissive. So, you know, he became a heavy influence. Definitely, I was kind of looking at what was happening in Hale County as a benchmark. What's interesting about Architecture for Humanity is that we just don't go, we're not going willy-nilly. We are global, but we go where we're asked. You can't just knock on a door and expect people to want him to just, you know, build them a house. It's really about developing these relationships and really about understanding the context that you're working in. When you impose architecture on a community, you destroy it. And the role of an architect is to put something on this planet that is either a betterment or a detriment. And when you leave this planet, if you can sit there and say, I did my bit to improve it, then you're a successful architect. If on your deathbed you realize that what you did was destroy neighborhoods, create urban wastelands, and line the pockets of developers who didn't care about the residents, then you failed.
This program is called Design Build Bluff, and we are in Bluff, Utah, right across the river. The San Juan River delineates the Navajo Reservation. I started seeing the rural studio projects in in all the trade magazines. Those pictures popped out, so I had to go down and see them and see Sambo. I just knew I had to go meet Sambo. I went down and just hung out a little bit and wanted to see how the rural studio worked. And then, Sambo said, go do your own project, man. It's time. You got to do it. You got to agitate. You got to cajole. I love those words that he was using at those times. You got to stick it to this academic bureaucracy.
For 61 years since I was a boy, we never had water, running the water into our home. This is the first time that we ever had water, for us to drink rather than go down to the mission, haul water. We really thank them, what they have done.
When I came here and when I met them, I have no idea what should I ask, because in the program in school, I always study about architecture, but not study about the people who live in. So it's totally different.
They just asked us questions and what design, and I just kind of briefly told them.
And what did you say? What did you tell us? What did you tell us you wanted? Like a space chef or something, right?
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Wasn't it? Star Wars. It was something like Star Wars. I don't think this whole idea of hands-on or in the field learning is only applicable to architecture. I mean, anybody I talk to in education now everybody is saying that we need to have hands-on or real-world experience in addition to sitting in a classroom and letting 90% of that stuff fly by.
It's kind of a romantic project that my father had developed, and it was definitely a beautiful piece of work that he created, which of course incorporated architecture, but this is really more of a piece of art that he wanted to do. And he was so excited. I mean, he said to numerous people, this is the most important project that I'm working on right now. Sub rosa, it's actually a term that the Romans used when they would have secret meetings. They would hang roses from the ceiling. And if you were to come into a space where roses were hanging, then you knew you were not to share that information outside of that space. And if you were, then other people in the room had the right to kill you and your family. So growing up, Papa would tell us things in Sub rosa. And he would tell us all kinds of things that my mother doesn't even know that he's told us. But we can't tell anyone else because we're sworn to secrecy. The idea of the space was that you enter in this long, dark tunnel underground. And then when you get to the end, there's a release at the end. It's a pantheon in that it has the open space in the ceiling. And in the center of the space, of the circular space, is a turtle pond. There's a bench that you sit on, and you can sit next to someone. You're sitting underneath the roses, and you can lean over to your right and whisper into a tube. And the person sitting to your left can lean over to the left and put their ear up to the tube, and you whisper. And the secret travels all the way around the space, and the only person that can hear it is the person leaning up to the other tube. And you're not to share those secrets, otherwise the turtles that live in Sub rosa will come after you. December of 2001, Papa passed away, And then my senior year in college, I decided that I wanted to come out here to the Rural Studio, where I'd been coming since I was 12, my whole, for a big part of my life, and be a part of what my father had loved and built. And I wanted to be a part of that, not as his daughter, but as a student. My major in Auburn was interior design, and I'd never built anything, hardly. I didn't know what concrete was. I called it cement, which is not what concrete is. One great realization of the difference between, just coming here and visiting and then being a student was that you catch the Rural Studio bug. It's just a matter of, and what I heard my father say a million times of, if you give the students a chance, they can do anything, which is what most students leave here with, is the bug of, I can do anything. And I did. I built a space that my father didn't get to finish.
Oh, we just think it's grand. We think it's grand. It is the pride of the town. it is the absolute pride of the town. A magnificent building. My first opinion of architects were that they were self-centered, egotistical people who just wanted to be rich. So I was very skeptical of it. But when Sam Mockaby brought this Rural Studio here and set these people out, these kids out here, and interact in the community, to meet the people and see the people's needs and to actually help them and work with them, it changed the whole scope of thinking. It has a humanitarian side to it. And that's what the Rural Studio brings to architecture. Actually, I cannot be critical of the Rural Studio. I find no fault. Except that they haven't built me a house yet. Other than that, I have no problem.
To make judgments about the way that Music Man lived or change the way that Music Man lived. We only wanted to make the way that he lived better and healthier. And I think the students and I think our work did that. The biggest difference that I witnessed firsthand was giving him easy access to clean water and what that did for his health and hygiene.
The well. Mm-hmm. Come on, man. Said, you had to go to the Spain. Look out here now. Said, you ain't got to go to Spain no more. You ain't got to haul it no more. 185-foot well. Said, you had to run to the water run to you. I believe y'all hear me now.
It's real simple, the difference between the space that Music Man was in, the trailer, and his new house. And he might live in those two houses very similarly, and he collects the same items and fills up the space with the same stuff. But the thought beforehand of giving that room up there in the ceiling for air and light and Music Man's spirit to move freely through the space is, I think that's what architecture is.
It is exciting for me to see the spirit living on manifest in a way that isn't like a Hallmark card, but which is feels sincere and makes me feel certainly question, what would I hope to give to people through my life? Not that everybody has to form a rural studio or be on a magazine cover, but just that you at some level touch a number of people in a really sincere, not patronizing, but meaningful way.
Number one! Man, come on down here. Man, God about that. Man, this shit. Man, thank God, man. Get ready, man. Get ready. We finna chill out, man.
All right. All these students, as they become successful, as they finally get registered, and they really are leading the life of an architect, that's when they'll start saying, look, I want to do something like I did back when I was at the Royal Studio. I want to regain that sense of wonder. So these students are getting an opportunity to produce this kind of work in a very little frame in their careers that's going to ultimately blossom at some point, I do believe, down the road.
Raggy leave it, oh, do raggy leave it. Raggy leave it, oh boy, just ragged as a jaybird. A Mississippi and I'm gonna build me a stone fence. In the morning, oh, soon in the morning. In the morning, when I rise, I'm gonna sit by the fire. A Mississippi and I'm gonna build me a stone fence. Sweet potato, oh, sweet potato. Sweet potato, oh boys, there's two in the fire. Mississippi and I'm gonna build me a stone fence. Horse and buggy, oh, horse and a buggy. Horse and buggy, oh boy, there's no one to drive 'em. A Mississippi and I'm gonna build me a stone fence.
I think it's a really very inspiring story that this film tells, and it's surreal to watch it in so decorated room. But I would like to start. By asking you, Jan, if you could tell a little bit more about your experiences here in Thailand. What exactly you did, and how does it differ, and in which ways it's similar to Samuel Mogby efforts in USA.
I came to Thailand in 2012, and I moved to the border to Mae Sot, and I met a couple of architects there, and we started an initiative with local Burmese migrants or refugees even, and the situation was, I think, in comparison to this, it started off like I came from I mean, my background was I was working in big offices around the world, and I was obviously used to things happening in a way, like in a certain way. So I had to adapt myself as well to the new situation on the border, and it took me a while to understand and learn from the communities and understand and also understand the people. Some of them only spoke Burmese or even only ethnic languages. So to build up a relationship and also a trust, I think, is very important. And then see how people live and what can be improved. So over the last 5 years, we did around 70 projects with mainly Burmese people. I mean, Burmese people as workers. And I can understand Sambo's approach. I think nowadays it's getting more and more important in general that we trying to understand societies and trying to understand communities and trying to understand how people live and in some ways how people survive even, right, if it comes to the most extreme parts. And I think this movie was relatively one-sided, so you had Peter Eisenman on the other side, and we're probably going to talk about that later, but in general the message was that we have to, there will be more and more crises around the world. Everybody sees there will be wars around the world, and we have to adjust to that as an architect, right? It's a new discipline almost, right? I mean, 15 years back or 20 years back, he might have been one of the only firms that did it, but nowadays there are many, many more social architecture firms around the world, and I hope there will be more. So maybe that was a bit too far already, isn't it?
That's fine. So
yeah, maybe quickly, this was, I mean, these are the projects, like this is, for example, one of the projects we did is, it was an emergency situation for a local school, and the idea was to build a classroom, or in that case, 2 classrooms. So it's one classroom facing the other side, one classroom facing this side. The budget was $1,000. So we came up with a very, very light steel structure that can be moved later if it has to be moved. A very, very simple concrete slab, and then we use this local thatch material. The building was standing there for about 18 months. In those 18 months, they fixed the existing school building, and which was under very, very bad condition, so that's why we had to build it generally. And then after 18 months, we moved this classroom to another school where it still exists and where it's still been used as a hall space even for the school. The advantage, as you see, has enough natural lighting, so you don't need lights. It's naturally ventilated. It's the coolest space of the whole school. And yeah, I mean, it's just a very simple space.
Okay, so maybe switch at the same question. Maybe you could tell a little bit more about ASA-CAN activities.
Okay, yeah. So I'm having 2 roles here. One is that I'm a chairperson of ASA-CAN, or Community Act Network, which is under the ASA. And the other one is that I'm teaching full-time at Faculty of Architecture, BการUniversity. So basically for ASA-CAN, we just like a platform for community architect or architect that working with community or for community. And for Bการ, I'm teaching Faculty of Architecture, and I have like a small module called Community Architecture and Conservation of Community Development, something like that. So by working with ASA-CAN, it's more working, we have three activities. One is that we trying to network all the architects that have similar interests, like we all interested in social work. And so we organize some talk and exhibition and also some workshop that we invite some architectural students to have some hands-on experience. Sometimes we go to some community and work with them for a short time. It is hands-on, but not as hands-on as the rural studio. That would be like the dream thing that I would like to have, but I cannot achieve it yet. And also in the school, we also have limited resources and limited time, so we cannot have like the rural studio that I think they stay there many months in order to do such a project. And for me, I can do only small project and just small design intervention and try to observe how people interact or how to make how design, what the role of design that can make a sense of community a bit stronger or connect more people or something like that. So very, very small scale.
Yeah, actually, rural studio usually they take 1 year for a small project and 2 years for the community project. So they stay even longer. So I would like to ask you because Cameron Sinclair from Architecture for Humanity, he said that he goes where he's asked. He's working globally, but he doesn't just go into communities and propose something. So I would like to ask you, how do you acquire projects? How do you get?
In my case, because for the ASA-CAN, we initiate the project by ourselves, but of course we get a hint from our network because we have a lot of friends who are working with community. So we kind of know that, okay, this community is ready to design a community center, or this one is interested to have a playground. And just like in the movie, that we cannot just assume that we can just knock at anyone's doors and assume that, oh, they're going to be happy to have architect here. No one needs that, especially the poor. I mean, they wouldn't want to have us in their priority. We can only go there when they are ready, and we can only go there when we think that design matters in that time. And for our school, we, because like I say, I have some small module teaching, and for that one, it's a bit different. I kind of initiate project from kind of like my analysis on. So we only go for something not too dramatic or not like they're going to be evicted tomorrow and then we go there because it's going to be too much for the student to handle and they wouldn't be so effective. They wouldn't be able to help anyone. So yeah, the question is you should choose the context or choose the community to work with when they are quite ready. And not all community needs architect at different phases. And you?
I think I explained already a little bit earlier. So yeah, it took a while. So we had to gain the trust of the local people first. It's not that you just come to a place and people are waiting for you, or people are there and saying, oh, there's an architect, let's ask him how he would do it. A lot of people actually don't even know what an architect does, or what's. So we were asked to build a hospital for migrants and refugees, for a very influential person, a Burmese lady who fled Burma in 1989, Dr. Cynthia Mong. She runs a hospital called Maytao Clinic in Mae Sot. It's mainly for Burmese migrants. She herself is Karen. And once you have a person like her on your side, right, she knows the communities, she knows the people, and once she realizes that you are committed, that you are staying, that the work you're doing is legit, then you have already one foot in the door, right?
Would you like me to show some slides, or you can?
I mean,
the audience
sure. I mean, there were a few projects, and then yes, you get asked by people or even local organizations. So one of the projects we did was one of our first projects we did was a boarding house that had to be built. So we had to host 125 students, but we only had about 6 weeks' time to build dormitories for 125 students. That's a lot of students. And obviously the budget was very, very, very small. So we came up with a module like this one. This was a place for 25 students. And this is go by, oh yeah. So this is Albert on the right side. He's the other 50% of Agora Architects. And this is actually at a wood shop in Mae Sot, talking about wood details and how they can be fixed and how it could be done. And then we built in total 5 of these buildings. So this is under construction. It's a very simple frame structure. This is the inside. Everything is used bamboo, and the roof is made of thatch. So very, very basic. This is actually a leaf, like a eucalyptus leaf, a local leaf. And this is the building. So it kind of, by building 5, we had a good arrangement which created a little kind of village feeling inside. Unfortunately, 2 years ago we had an accident and all the buildings burned down within 10 minutes. So we literally, nobody got hurt, nobody got injured. It was a fire on a field nearby, and literally one leaf flew over onto the roof and it all burned down like in no time. But still, I mean, we got the trust and we rebuild a bit differently. I don't have pictures of the rebuild, but we didn't use grass roofs or leaf roof anymore, so we used a metal roof. But therefore we had to make sure that the roof is higher, so we have more air ventilation inside, so metal roof is always keeps the building inside very hot. So we just had to adjust, but it also worked. Yeah.
Okay, and could you say a little bit more to the reaction of the people you work with directly? Because I think this is quite important topic in the film, and I particularly like the quote from Samuel Mogby when he said that the common approach is that those poor, so to say, people, those underprivileged communities, they are the ones that have to kind of come out of their world and join us and learn from us. But he said that actually he's doing the opposite. He's going there and he's actually learning from that. So I would like to hear from you what is your approach, and also how does in reality your interaction with these people work?
Yeah, I remember. Actually, it's a giving and taking, right? It's not just that you go there. I think first of all, to go into your community, and you have to find the right way of how you would do it. Especially for me as a foreigner, as a German, coming into a Burmese community is something very uncommon, right? Albert is from Spain, from Barcelona. It's the same thing. Over there, yes, you have a white man going into, a black community, but they're still in the US. So maybe it's a little bit different. I'm not so sure. It took us a time, right? And in general, I forgot the question actually.
What is the reaction of the
what is
people
the
that
reaction?
you work with?
The reaction. The reaction is that you don't really get very often a reaction, especially not like he got from the community. It's I think the biggest compliment is if the user of the building are using the building as it is built, and not going and then changing it, changing it in a certain way they would. So trying to understand how people locally behave, how people locally use their building, use their houses, and then building towards that and see that the people using the building as you have built it, I think that's the biggest compliment. But that somebody would say and come, oh, I love that building, I think it's not what people would do in general, I feel. We had a few local people who ask us then to build a private house, right? So that shows that there is a certain interest of how we used local materials, natural materials. We did a lot of buildings with adobe, with mud bricks, with soil, and people wanted those bandin in Thai, So people wanted those bandin buildings in Mesot, and then we built them some, and yeah, I think they really enjoy those buildings.
And for my case, the reaction when we would like to work with any community, because my work is a bit more participatory, so it's really about working with the people. The first reaction would be that they're not interested. There's no reaction, and that's like the first step that we have to work with. That nobody wants to participate in our participatory design, and that is kind of the first thing that we have to get over with. So a lot of time that before we can get started to do any participatory design workshop, we have to running around, attract some kids, giving them some toys, giving them some snack, and like organize like a workshop with kids because kids is easier to manipulate, right? And once the kids come and then the parents come later, and then we can start a conversation. So we need a lot of tricks and we need a lot of strategies, because it's not like, oh, we are a good architect, we want to do something for you. Nobody cares. They are too busy working on their own thing and they're trying to survive. So the first reaction is that I'm not interested. And then secondly, when we try to like communicate a bit more with them, but not that much yet, they would say, oh, you do anything is good, everything is good. And that means that they're still not interested, but they're just trying to be polite. And the key is that it's not like we are Santa Claus, like giving them a Christmas gift, and then they will feel, oh, thank you, whatever it is, thank you, it's free. No, that's not a good reaction anyway. It's still in the same category that, no, that's not enough for us to work with the community. And then the next step, if we communicate more, and if we try to have another kind of participatory process in whatever, then they may say, okay, I have an opinion about this. I don't like your design. This is a bit better. We prefer pink, and we prefer this material. And that's the real conversation. That will be the reaction that we expected. So there's a lot of steps that we're trying to reach the reaction and communication with the people that we work with. Yeah. So that's, in my slide, there would be a lot of example, but we don't have to go through. Like, I will skip this part. Sometimes we have to create models, and sometimes we have to, like, making them like to be this architect on their own, like a DIY kit that they can, you have this budget, and we put the cost of each element behind this paper, and then they can rearrange the design by themselves. So we know how much it will cost and how many football field that they can have. And in some cases like this one, we provide like a dollhouse, unfinished house, that they can argue, they can make decisions, like, oh, we want this kind of gable, we want hip, we want this and that. So they can argue, and this kind of conversation really make them react for real, not just say, oh, everything is good, or I'm not interested. So we need a lot of strategy in order to communicate with the people. And they can make a very beautiful design though. And then the job of the architect is that we materialize it into reality. And this one, we work with architect Kit D and Shmaso, and which is a famous architect and landscape architect. So something like that.
Mm-hmm. I see. And if we look at some of the projects of Rural Studio, these are very strongly designed structures with very clear design intention, right? For example, this house, which is actually made from used carpet tiles. And I just wonder, do your clients like realize it, that especially maybe in your case, and the structures you do, this is something a little bit different? Do they appreciate the visual aspect or the spatial qualities of the spaces you do? And also, what is your approach as architects, or maybe architects you work with? Do you try to, so to say, is it important for you to really design it? Is it to do more than solve the problem?
So I think a lot of the projects that we actually did is they're coming from inside out, right? They're coming from the needs, from how what does the building have to provide, right? What is it for? What is the function? And for example, the dormitories, the form followed literally the function, right? A lot of the other projects we did had exactly the same. So we don't have such an eye-catcher, no? At this project, for example, we never really did this. We did relatively quiet and relatively simple buildings with simple facades, and so never really something that had an image or created an image. So so I think that's it's a bit different, I would say. It's not really comparable. I think Mokbi had a different opinion about that, right? For him, for example, the fire station that we saw, right? The fire station is something that the community can identify them with. It's It's a building in the city that everybody knows, that everybody probably, whenever they drive past the building, they see it, they look at it. It's a one-time thing, and our buildings were never really that in the face of people. So we never really had locations within a city or within a community where people would say, "Oh yeah, wow, this is like the school," right? So it's a bit different. They're always a bit off the grid, so quite hard to find.
And I think the community or the low income or the poor or the people that we're trying focusing on, they like beautiful building, but they care about how beautiful the house is, but they just have different tastes from us, and that's very clear. They like beautiful building, but what they mean beautiful is like maybe very bright blue kind of roof tile, which the architect like, gonna have a heart attack seeing that, you know. But of course they do, and it's our role to communicate with them that actually you can have a thatch roof, but you can make it a very beautiful way, like Agora did. I think you succeeded very much. You use something like cheap and local, but you take it to another level, like make it more beautiful. I'm not sure they think it's beautiful, but you know, if they think that's for me, that's very successful, because you don't need to follow that what they want, but you kind of like rearrange what they already had and make them accept it, and that is really difficult, really difficult, I think.
What was actually very difficult is to reinvent bandin, because I think bandin was a material that was used in a traditional way back in the days. We went to Pan farm. I think a lot of people might know them. Pijo taught us how to use bandin, and we brought bandin into Mesot. So we were the first people in Mesot who built bandin buildings. There was one in Umpang as well that we did in a workshop with him. So that was quite interesting to see how people react to bandin, right? Because they see, oh, this is not concrete, so it cannot be good. So everybody thinks concrete is the material to build with because concrete is strong, it costs a lot of money, that way it has to be good, right? But bandin has so many advantages. It's it's an amazing material, and we are glad that we were able to reintroduce it into a community.
But still, then I would like to ask you more of your personal statement. What is something that you would like to do by doing this project? Would you like also to push it farther on the design scale? If you would, because of course the conditions in Mesont and in New Bern are slightly different. It's not exactly the same situation. It's quite a big institution that got a lot of donors. They also have very many experts they work with. Of course, this particular building or some of the later buildings are relatively advanced structures to extent.
I think even in that you need to compare, right? Let's say, have a look at the building with the tires, right? That's what he said was $8,000.
Yeah.
Right. If you look at the fire station, that's easily $50,000. I mean, it's a different level of how much a building costs, right? If you have the opportunity to spend more money, you can also maybe, it depends on the situation. You can look more into design, you can look more into using some better quality materials, right? But if you don't have the budget, then you need to find a way of using the money that you have to find the best possible solution. And then sometimes design is something that is not as important, right?
Yeah, in my case, the design should be interesting for architect. That means it should be a bit, beautiful in our kind of taste. Because my role actually for ASA-CAN or even at my school is that I want to promote this kind of practice. So somehow I need more friends. I need more people to be interested in this. Like a good designer should be interested in social work, for example. So yes, the design should be beautiful in architect point of view in order to expand our work. Because if the student think that, okay, this is like some kind so simple and it's so boring, then we wouldn't get anyone who be interested in our kind of practice. So it has to be fun for them as well, but at the same time, it shouldn't be having fun on someone else's disaster. That would mean taking advantages, like Mogby already said so.
Yes, and Mogby also said that he is trying to find solutions not only for the functional problems, but he also tries to cater to the spiritual aspects the building, which is of course a very abstract, right, aspect of architecture. And looking at this building, one can wonder also if this underprivileged community truly is able to appreciate these buildings. Although, if one see the statement by Peanut Robinson, who said that the fire station is the pride of the town, seems like they do understand this. But is this something that you kind of in a way consider, like trying to really analyze some vernacular elements or history of the place, or and go farther than providing shelter and ventilated, efficient space?
I think it's fair for Mogby to be interested in spiritual kind of dimension of his own work. Of course, he has to be happy at what he's doing. But if you notice that the people, when you interview them, they will say, "Oh, thank God, it's new, clean water," for example. They only say something very basic, and I think there's a gap there, and it's okay, because if Mogby wouldn't be happy to do whatever he's doing, he wouldn't have enough drive or enough power to continue his work, because this kind of work need a lot of drive from yourself. So I mean, spiritual is okay. I'm not so into this kind of abstract or something so deep. But I think you have to kind of come into the middle, that you have to deliver something that you feel so important for humanity, but at the same time it's kind of answer that very basic question: where do I get my water? Is there any electricity? Will I be safety in this one? Will be healthier in this house? So, of course, we have to sustain our own satisfaction and at the same time, their own interests as well. I don't know.
I completely agree. I mean, I think we sometimes even call the stuff that we're doing architecture for necessity. So it's a very rational thing. Spiritual is, if you know the communities and you know the Quran, for example, they're all really religious, they're all Christian, but it never really plays a big role, or never really played a big role. So it's really just what can we provide and how can we provide it, and what's the best approach to achieve the most efficient product or building, right? So yeah, that's basically what it is.
Yeah, I think this is the reason why Mogby was sometimes accused of being opportunistic, because he's actually probably, letting his creative ways go. But now I'd like to ask you, do you revisit your projects? And what do you consider a success? I know it's a very general question, but...
So they are basically, or there was one moment in that movie where they're saying, I think it was the office when Mogby was still alive versus after his death, how it developed. And it was said at parts that it became more sophisticated. And then there was another voice saying that it was very sophisticated when they made a lot of mistakes at the beginning. I think I have to say, we have to admit, we did a lot of mistakes in our project, a lot of mistakes. But from those mistakes, you also learn, right? You improve, and you maybe find different solutions. And but you also always have to see, sometimes you really don't have much time. You have to come up with a solution. Yes, you might create a problem, as Eisenman said, but you can also try to fix it and adapt to it. Yeah.
And my answer is a bit quite theoretical, because I'm not from the practice part. So I think how to indicate whether it's successful or not, I'm looking at participation, how it's done, rather than the outcome of the process. So participation for me, at least it should deliver three things. The first one is that it should make the project more efficient or effective. At least you ask them, at least at the consultation level, you should ask the people what they like, how they live, and trying to understand their way of living. And that is a very first step of participation should deliver. And the second one is that in participatory design process, it should build up local capacity. Meaning that the people involved in your project, maybe some technology transfer, maybe they know how to do a thatch roof in a different way when they work with Agora, or maybe they know how to use bandin or mud house in a different way. So it has to be a certain kind of local capacity building. And at the ultimate level of participation, it should reach to empowerment. And empowerment is a very kind of like unclear word, but empowerment should mean that the people start to standing for themselves, understand what really affect their life and how they can make change about it, and the people do some action about it and also reflect on the action. So that would mean some indicator for measure how successful the project is.
Yeah, this is just to illustrate the question. If one look at the living condition of Music Man
Yeah.
before and after, right? A part of this objective functional aspect, like more light, bigger house, running water, not much has changed, right? From this to this, right? His lifestyle, but I mean, his life improved, right?
Life improved. But I'm sure the architect cries secretly. I'm sure, like, oh my God,
that.
is it how they use my space? I'm pretty sure they're gonna cry, but they're not gonna cry in front of the camera or anything like that.
But speaking of architect crying, Jan, did it happen to you that you were maybe not crying, but disappointed in what was done or how your building was used in this case?
Yeah, I guess in some points it...
Did you cry?
I had to cry.
You
I
have
had
to cry.
I had to cry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in general, I just want to say something in general about that movie. I think it's a bit too romanticized for me, right? I think you see Mokbe as this person who has this social responsible or social responsibility. I think that should not be a single case anymore. I think every architect should have that, right? There should not be questioned. There should not be any question about it. And I think something like that should also be taught at any architectural university. I think it should be a basic thing, right? We're not building for big corporates. We're building for the people. We're building for the people who are using those buildings. And I think we're forgetting about that as architects, right? So there was one thing is this, where he said, this country does not reward architects who build social responsible architecture, right? And our societies globally, I'm not talking about Thailand, I'm not talking about Germany in general, I'm saying it is going that way. We architects forget for who we're building the buildings. We're building it for the people and not for banks or, right? We do too much, but I think we should rethink that. We should, in general, rethink that and become more radical about it, no? As I said earlier, there are wars, there are all sorts of problems around the globe that we as architects can help to tackle.
Yeah. I totally agree with what you said, and just to continue from that is that we shouldn't divide the architect who work with the poor community or the rich community. Of course, they need a certain kind of different professionalism, but we should call them just architect. Even though you build a hospital or you build an office building, it affects life of people anyway. So in order to be a good architect, you have to be good at what you're designing. And you have to care about the user as well. It doesn't mean that, because you're designing for the poor, it means you are better or, it's the same thing. It's just we shouldn't try to divide the two worlds. Otherwise it wouldn't help anyway.
This could be a very good final statement, but we have still a little bit of time, and I would like, since you already mentioned him, go to Eisenman. Because I feel like one of the strengths of this documentary is the fact that they do also go to the other side and let it speak for itself. So how would you comment on Eisenman's statement that architects' duty is not to make the better world, and it's good that architecture can create problems?
He's basically turning it around, no? He says, architects should tackle problems, and then he says, architects creating problems, which is good. Yeah. So he's basically flipping it for his own advantage, right? Obviously, he has, 2 minutes of talking about this thing in a movie that's one hour long, where the other 58 minutes are about the opposite. Yeah. So I think his position in that movie is a bit on the, maybe he's been caught a bit on the wrong foot, and I would really like to know how his reaction was to the movie in general. But he comes across as very arrogant, obviously, right? He says, I'm not going to ask the people I'm building the building for, because they don't know, right? I cannot use their not knowing or their knowledge for me as a guideline as an architect. is obviously a very arrogant statement. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of respect what he said, but I would say I disagree when he said that he knows much more better than the one who are his user, for example. Of course, we have expertise. Otherwise, we wouldn't spend 5 years or even like 7 or 8 or 9 years, including the internship or anything, to be an architect. Of course, we know a lot more, but at the same time, we should have like a dialogue with the people we're trying to design for or designing with. Otherwise, it would be a bit too arrogant. And you really have to be a genius, you know, trying to know what people want without asking them. I think it's a bit impossible unless you are a real genius. And I doubt that anyone can be a genius like that.
And again, that's part of the social aspect, right? The social aspect of being an architect is actually to work with the societies, to work with the communities and talk to them, right? So if you feel like you're better than them and you don't want to talk to them, then you are probably that kind of architect who is not going into the communities anyways, who is the architect who builds skyscrapers in Dubai or builds banks in, you know, around the world and doesn't really care. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay though. Don't try to be social architect by having that kind of attitude. I think it's even more dangerous, you know. Like a lot of famous architects trying to do some social project, and they think that, oh, I have some beautiful design there in Africa, a school, and it will solve their problems. I think that's even more dangerous in a way.
I think it's dangerous if they don't mean it, yes.
Yeah.
Again, I think as an architect, you should have that social idea, this social gene already anyways, no? I mean, I've been once asked by a student, she asked me, Jan, what can I do to become a social architect? And I was like, what kind of question is that? There is no recipe. You are either a social person and then you know what you're doing, right? That was in Mexico. Just go outside your house. There are people living on the street. There are social projects in your city everywhere. Just do it. Just go there and work with the people, right? Don't ask me what your recipe. There is no recipe, right? So that's what I think, and I think it should be spoken about during the education for sure.
Of course, yeah.
And I think we had a conversation earlier that I think at some universities also in Thailand, people are not really aware of what's going on along the borders. We, for example, like Agora, 2 years ago, we were trying to find Thai architects who wanted to come and work with us in Mesot. We went to Chulalongkorn, we went to Silpakorn, I'll just name a few universities. We went to Thammasat, and we couldn't find anyone. Nobody wanted to come to Mesot because Mesot is a very dangerous place. That's what we heard. And it's not dangerous. Yes, we have a lot of Burmese people, but it's not dangerous. Why is that? Why are people not want to go into those communities or,
yeah.
You know?
I have to be to London in order to learn about slum in Bangkok, for example. So that shows something. I wouldn't understand slum in Thailand when I spent 5 years in architectural school in Thailand. And I think it's globally, you know, we always try to be modernized and we try to be something exciting. And that's okay, that's fair, you know. Of course, we're sitting here, we pro-social architect or whatever it means. But again, Eisenman said something which I kind of accept, that we need two kinds or even different kinds of architect. We also need people who build skyscraper. You wouldn't be interested in building skyscraper. But at the same time, we have like 90% of architects working for the 10% of the client who will be able to afford this kind of work. And we need a bit more than 10% to designing for the other 90s, for example. It's a bit too marginalized, I would say. Of course, the movement in Thailand is a bit better, but still we are so marginalized, which is, of course, a problem.
Okay, from what I understand, we have 2 minutes left. So are there maybe any questions from the audience?
You can ask in Thai and Bim will translate it into English for you. Oh, okay, the translator. Have her on.
Yes, please.
Yes.
For example, the school, the temporary school that was burned.
No, that was the boarding houses. The dormitories that got burned, the schools, they survived.
So like this, they understand that it's different than the space in the concrete building.
Yeah, they do understand. I mean, there was a big concrete school building around, which was collapsing in parts. So there was some construction problems. So it was collapsing and had to be evacuated. So we had to find some other classrooms. They moved the two grade 10 in there. And they really liked it. They didn't want to move back into the concrete building because they said they could concentrate better. It's cooler. There has natural airflow. They were enjoying it in that building more than in the original big concrete building, which was obviously for us kind of like, a good sign.
But the design is 100% come from you, not from the process that you work together with them, or.
We worked with a local group called Goyo Goyo, which is Korean and means slowly, slowly, and they had the craftsmanship, the craftsman skills. No? So I would say it's a mix. It's a mix of contemporary, but maybe also traditional architecture.
Any other questions?
It's like a punishment.
But only one.
Okay. I have a question about the term reality. One of the terms in the movie suggesting that if we leave the school for a while, we get in touch with reality. In case of you work with foster before, right? And now you work with people in the communities. If we talk about this term reality, what kind of reality that we learn in these two different worlds? I mean, is it?
So at Foster, you learn the reality of being a student again in a big architecture office doing competitions 24/7, which for 5 years none of them gets ever built, and you're literally sitting there at your desk and nothing happens. This reality is you go out there and you build a building in 3 or 4 weeks. That's reality, I would say. I think Foster is an amazing office. They did amazing projects, but I think they're building 1 out of 20 projects. They do 20 projects and 1 they build. So it's a machine. It's part of like additional education to what you learn at university. You want to go to Foster, go there. You sit in a group with very, very young architects. They all have an education from various international universities, and you do competitions again and again and again, which is literally just what you did at the university. So it was a great experience, but this was more eye-opening. This was, for me, more important. Also develop as an architect. It was a different step.
And I have a question for Ajahn Nong. Because you teach as well, and also you take the student to the field. So when we are at school, we try to support students to try or experiment to be more creative. When they go out to work with community, they face with limitations, constraints. How do you balance these two sides for students?
Yeah, it's quite crucial actually. When you say reality, the reality of community is really complex, and most of the time it's nothing to be romanticized with. It's not like we're going to a community and then they will clap out their hands and they will welcome us. No, it's not like that at all. And even sometimes when we work with the community, there's a lot of conflict. And even though they hate each other and maybe they hate us as well, and maybe the students also hate each other. So when you said reality, I would say as a tutor who act like a facilitator for the student to be able to learn, I have to arrange a little bit of the reality. It cannot be too real for the student, especially the undergraduate. So when I teach undergraduate students, they only design something in the studio, like small scale, maybe a table, a shelving system in a community museum, this and that, and then they will give it to the community. And I will kind of trying to limit that communication or that interaction with the community members because it's so fragile. It's not like, oh my God, I'm a teenager and I want to do something good and let's go to a community. It's so sensitive, whatever they say, the way they put, when they smile or not smiling, and the reaction or the tone of voice. So it's so fragile. When you work with real people, they can get misunderstood, they can get angry, they can feel like they've got intimidated by us. So when I work with undergraduate students, I'm trying to, how to say, I wouldn't use the word manipulate, but of course I manipulate a little bit, that I try to draw a circle that they should stay in this line in order to interact with the community members. I wouldn't let them be on their own with community members without I'm standing there, because I don't want them to say whatever they think, because I don't want it to affect, or I don't want them to feel sensitive, the community member. But when I work with postgraduate students like PhD or MA students, it's much easier. They are all grown up and they kind of like, they know how to speak with a person. They pay respect to the person, and they to work with the real community is so difficult, and you have to respect them a lot. And for me as a tutor, I found it's really, really difficult when I teach, because I want them to also have good experience when they do this kind of social work. But at the same time, they have to be critical about what they do as well. So that's sometimes when in the room, I have to balance between what they really have to learn, so they have to be skeptical about what they do, also be critical about their design, but at the same time, they should be positive about whatever they did, because I don't want them to feel, oh my God, I did one community work when I was young and it's really bad. I feel so sad, because I want to have more younger generation to continue this kind of work. So yes, I'm trying to balance this all the time, although I don't look like I'm trying to manipulate, but I would say I try to rearrange the feeling of the student as well. So that would be my answer.
Any more questions? Okay. I think we can wrap it now. I would just, before we go, like to invite you to our remaining sessions. Tomorrow we are going to watch Microtopia and discuss the idea of micro-dwelling and generally living off the grid. And on Friday we will watch Cold Cuts, a dark French comedy from the 70s, and examine the influence of the space on people and see if architecture can really influence how people feel and lead to, for example, alienation or dehumanization of their relations. So thank you very much for your attention, and of course, first of all, thanks to our guests, Supi Chatovic and Jan Glasmeier. Thank you very much for coming.